Thank you so much for being here tonight. Welcome to Monday and welcome to the Monday Night Missions Conference. We're hosting this conference online on several pages of our social media and our main website. And we're just glad you're a part of it. You could have been doing anything else tonight, but you chose to be a part of it here. I'm excited that you're here. Tonight, you will see a missionary presentation. I will interview a missionary and you will have an opportunity to have your questions answered. But the only way I'll know what your questions are is if you ask them. So, what I want you to do is listen to the presentation tonight. Then, on the page you are, if you're in a watch party, someone will help you get your question over to us. But if you're on my page or you're on Worldwide's Facebook page, we'll see your questions. If you're on YouTube, we'll see your questions there. But help us with your questions. What would be the worst thing ever? To have a missionary present his ministry and have no questions. Don't do that tonight. Ask a bunch of questions. We'll be excited to answer them for you. So tonight I'm going to show you Brother Wesley Grant's presentation. And then after that, we'll take your questions. I've seen this presentation already, and I know you'll be blessed.
Hello, my name is Wesley, and my wife's name is Kayla, and we are the Grants. We are missionaries to the Flathead and the Blackfoot reservations of Northwest Montana, and we serve with Worldwide New Testament Baptist Missions, which is located in Kings Mountain, North Carolina, and our sending church is Morning Star Independent Baptist Church of Easley, South Carolina. It was at our sending church where our missionary journey began. In July of 2015, our home church had a missions conference/revival, and it was during this meeting that we were able to speak with a missionary that serves in the Midwest. This missionary started sharing with us the spiritual need that is present in the state of Montana. My wife and I were engaged to be married at this time, but we started talking about Montana and found that we both felt the same burden for the state. After our conversations, I started praying that the Lord would show me a location to go, and He started highlighting the northwestern corner of the state. My wife and I got married in April of 2016, and we were finally able to go on a survey trip in late April to early May of 2018. While we were on this trip, the Lord allowed us to drive into the Flathead and the Blackfoot reservations, and it was at this point that He broke our hearts for the people that live there. Both the Flathead and the Blackfoot reservations suffer from considerably high addictions to meth, cocaine, and alcohol. In addition to these addictions, the reservations also suffer from a considerable level of poverty. The Flathead Reservation had a poverty level of 23.6% in the year 2015, which is around double the national poverty level, and the Blackfoot Reservation had a poverty level of 44.5%, which is nearly quadruple the national poverty level. It is these addictions and these levels of poverty that have led to an increase in the number of suicides. Even with all these things affecting the reservations, the Native people that live there are still very proud of their Native American heritage. The reservations regularly participate in powwows as well as festivals that celebrate their rich cultural roots. We will be planting the first church in the town of Ronan, Montana, which is located on the Flathead Reservation. Highway 93, which runs from Missoula to Kalispell, goes directly through the middle of Ronan and brings many people through the area. Ronan is also centrally located to the most populated areas of the Flathead Reservation. The town of Ronan has a population of just over 2,000 people and does not have a single Baptist church of any kind. There is only one independent Baptist church within a 60-mile drive of Ronan. However, you will find denominations such as Lutheran, Catholic, Church of the Nazarene, Mennonite, and Mormon all present in this town, and the Mormon church by far is the largest church in town. As far as the Flathead Reservation as a whole is concerned, there is around 30,000 people that live there, and it covers a total of 1,938 square miles. This reservation is also primarily Roman Catholic. Even with this being said, there is a very unexpected thing that you can find on the reservation. There is a place called the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas. It's a Buddhist shrine where practicing Buddhists, as well as the all religions crowd, go to worship. It has even been visited by the Dalai Lama, which is the highest ranking Buddhist official in the world. While we are striving to build up a church on the Flathead Reservation, we will also seek ministry opportunities to go into the Blackfoot Reservation and share the gospel there as well. The population of the Blackfoot Reservation is roughly 11,000 people, and it covers a land area of 2,285 square miles. The primary religion on the Blackfoot Reservation is Roman Catholicism, but there are a few that still practice traditional tribal worship of the sun god, which they refer to as Napi, which translated means the old man. Montana as a whole in 2016 was determined to have the highest suicide rate of any state in America. The national average is 13.5 suicides per 100,000 in population, whereas Montana has 25.9. With all of these things being considered, it is clear to see that these reservations need hope, and the only hope that there is the hope of the gospel. There are a few ways that you can help us in reaching these locations. Number one, you can pray for us. And number two, you and your church can consider partnering with us to share in the financial burden of the ministry. If you can do either of these, it would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much, Brother Wesley. It's hard to believe in our own country we could say, okay, we need a church planter in America. If we said we needed a church planter anywhere else in the world, we said, sure, I'm all in. But in America, but it's true. And I remember one of the first missionaries we had last week was Brother Jackie Elwert going to California. We'll have another missionary this week going to Washington State. But when did you know, Brother Wesley? When did you know that you could do nothing else but be a missionary to Northwest Montana? Tell me about that moment.
Well, thank you, Brother O'Malley, for having me on tonight. And just want to take a moment just to say I appreciate everything you guys do for us. But however, that time was actually in 2015. We were at a home missions or our home church's missions conference, and we were there listening to a missionary who we already support at our home church. He was home on furlough, and he was sharing with us about the work that he does. And he goes up and down the Midwest, filling in at churches and helping struggling churches. But during that evening, he mentioned from the pulpit a little bit about Montana and the need that is present there. And after the service, that really just struck me as strange. I really didn't realize the need other places in America. And after the service, I came up to him and started talking with him. And once we got to talking, he started telling me more and more about it. And that just really started hitting my heart, and it just really started burdening my heart about it. And I kind of kept that locked inside for about 3 weeks. My wife and I at the time, we were engaged then, and we stopped at a restaurant for lunch on a Saturday. And while we were there, I couldn't order. I just sat there and I said, Caleb, what do you think about going to Montana? And she said, I'm thankful that you asked. I'm glad you asked because I hadn't been able to get it off my heart and mind either. So it was at that time that the Lord just showed us that we both were feeling the burden and that we couldn't get it off our heart and our mind. And in 2016, we got married, and we weren't able to make it out there until 2018. We originally had a trip planned to go to Florida, location in Florida we all both wanted to go, but I couldn't get it off my heart that we needed to go to Montana. So I changed the trip schedule. and we were both excited and happy that we went up there to Montana. And when we went there in 2018, it really drove the burden and the need for more churches there home in our hearts, and we just couldn't get away from it. And as soon as we got back from there, that's when we started the application process worldwide.
And we welcomed that day. That was a great day. I remember the missions conference because I get to go to your church every year and hold those missions conferences at your church there in Easley, South Carolina. And Brother Wesley, what is it like? If you had to describe to me in just simple terms, what is it like to have a burden from God for Northwest Montana? What's that burden like? What does it feel like? What does it mean?
Well, it feels like something that you can never get away from. I know that each and every day that I wake up, that's really about the first thing that's on my mind. And it just the image of people there and that they're lost and they're dying without God, the gospel, and without God in their life, and they're unprepared, going out into an eternity unprepared. It's just that it keeps on coming up in my mind daily, multiple times a day. And with that being said, it really just makes an area in my heart and in my life that I just can't get away from that. That makes it to where that's the only thing I can do is think about it and strive to get there. I know that there's people there that are lost and they don't have good gospel witness. There are some good churches around, but their majority of them are too far of a drive for people just to go normally or to go at all, really. And that just it breaks my heart. And that burden is just always present. And when the Lord gives you a burden for a place, that is going to be always present and there on your heart. And it's going to be so much present and on your heart that it's just something you can't get away from. It's going to become a part of your daily life. It's going to consume you, and it's going to just be, in essence, who you are, is that burden.
Amen. You know, I'm thinking, Brother Wesley, of what you said in the first answer and then here in the second answer. And I'm thinking about some of the other answers we've heard to similar questions during this online missions conference. A missions conference is what God uses not just to raise funds to help the church meet its missions giving goals, not hardly. What happens in a missions conference is God speaks to hearts. At your same church, there's another missionary serving on the field in Cordova, Alaska,
Yes,
because
sir.
they went to missions conference that week. And they submitted the call of God. They too had a burden for that place in Cordova, Alaska. And in your church, in your missions conference, the same thing that happened to the Bordases is the same thing that happened to you. God called
Yeah.
you, and that's an exciting thing as well. Now, we're getting questions in. There are questions from South America already, and also in Ohio. I see a question here. So get your questions in and make them stumpers. We want Wesley to sweat. We want him to answer the tough questions, but not really. Well, don't make me ask tough questions. But I've got a third question tonight, Brother Wesley. And truthfully, these questions that I ask, they're the same to every missionary. And the reason why is that I believe if you have these three questions, you can ask every missionary these same three questions and get the gist of what God's called them to do. And that's why I asked them. But if you could kind of just look ahead 10 years, if you could have that kind of vision, and look ahead 10 years, and when you dream about your ministry, what will that ministry look like?
I dream about a church being planted and is already financially supporting itself. And I dream about people having submitted their lives to the Lord, getting saved. And I dream about people becoming discipled, men submitting themselves to the call of the Lord in the ministry. And I do dream within a 10-year time, Lord willing, to be able to be handing over the church to someone who has accepted Christ and wants to take on the work there, and being able to just step right in that spot, a local, a native maybe, and be able to just hand it over to someone, still being nearby for any more training or any more help that is needed, but then going on and Lord willing, starting a second church.
Mm, that's wonderful. And Brother Wesley, do you know where? I mean, we're talking 10 years down the road, but do you have ideas of other places to put churches?
There is other communities there on the reservations other than just Ronan don't have a good independent Baptist church. So there is several locations that kind of come to mind, but none just right off the bat that I would say
Okay.
that would be, if I had to pick a second place, that would be it. The Lord for this time being has planted our Ronan on her heart to go there specifically to begin with the first church and work out of there to the rest of the community.
Sure.
But as far as right now, I would not say there's a exact location for the second one really on our heart at this very
That's
second.
okay. And you just keep looking, and that
Amen.
is the key. Now, are there going to be, and these are questions from our viewers now, are there any specific guidelines that you will have to abide by while planting a church on the reservation? And will you live on the reservation?
Lord willing, we'll be able to live right there on the reservation. That reservation was opened up, or the Flathead Reservation, where the town of Ronan is, was opened up many years ago, back when the U.S. started giving reservations land. They started giving the Native Americans, each family got a certain amount of land. And at the end of all that, they realized that there was land left over. And when they realized that that land was left over, they opened it up for homesteaders. And really, from that point on, it became open for anyone who is not a native to be able to go in there and to live. And that also opens it up for them to plant churches or to open up
Wow.
businesses. And in the state of Montana, they do view churches as businesses. So therefore, it's really no different than just opening up another business up there in the state of Montana's eyes.
Good.
So there would be no issues.
And we know that the fact that it's God's business, and that's a good thing. A
Amen.
question from South America, Brother Joel Dickens asks, with so many different types of religions, what is your plan for reaching these needy people?
Just go with the gospel.
Okay.
There's really no need for any man-made philosophy, because really we got the best philosophy that there is right in the gospel, right in the Bible. And I'm just going to go telling about Christ and telling about what he's done for them, try to be their friend and just show them the way to the cross.
Amen. Amen. Now, I have another question. And my friend, Brother Joe Katinsky, he's from Ohio, and he said, is there any problem with a non-native living on the reservation? I believe you addressed that by saying that because of the homestead part that you could. And then the cultural rules that are there, will there be any cultural things that you will have to take note to?
There is definitely some cultural things that we'd have to take note to. There on the reservations, as in most reservations in the United States, you'll find that the native peoples there on those reservations are very close-knit, tight family kind of orientation. And really, if any of the family don't want a person to go to church, it don't matter if they're close family or far away family, as far as a second, third, fourth cousin or so. If they say no, I don't want you to go to church, many of the families that person won't go to church because they run the risk of being just kind of shoved out of their family, and the family just turning their back on them.
Wow. This is much for us to pray about for you as you go. When someone turns to Christ, they're, as in many places around the world, they're turning from their family. Great question, Joe. Mackenzie Case even identifies this as a hard question, Wesley. Get ready.
Okay.
Mackenzie says, do you have plans to help converts when they're rejected from their culture's beliefs?
The only thing that I can say there is truly just to show them friendship, show them love, and show them the gospel, and just be there as well as I possibly can for them, and just to be a friend for them. Because during those times, if they do get rejected from their family, they need someone close to them. They need a friend. They need someone that they can confide in, someone that they can trust, and someone that they feel comfortable around. And I'm just going to try to be that person for them. That person that just says, even though that's happened, I'm here for you. And that I see that going a long way.
Amen. Daniel Smithy is asking, who is your favorite missionary? And if that's a stumper for you, we can let you go back to the comment section if you want. That's your call.
Really, I have a lot of favorite missionaries. And really, I would have to say one that really sticks out in my mind is Hudson Taylor. I just look up to him and what he did the time that he was alive in the ministry. just having the guts, so to speak, just to step out on faith and do what he done for the Lord, and just persevering through many obstacles. And just when times got rough and tough, he just kept on going with it, and just he didn't give up on the Lord. And really, if I had to say that any one missionary would be the one that I'd look to and draw encouragement from, it'd be looking at the life of Hudson Taylor.
Good answer. Good missionary. Brother Chris Lupino, a friend of mine. Chris asks, how long have you been on deputation? What's the most challenging aspect of deputation? Let me guide this question just a little bit, or guide your answer. We're not looking for horror stories, and neither is Chris. I know Chris is hard.
Right.
What he's asking for, what's the challenge? Chris, his ministry, he works with Gospel Furthering Fellowship. His aspect is assisting missionaries, development and such. So he's asking, what's the tough part? He's probing in. Help us understand, what's the toughest aspect?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, we got accepted with Worldwide September the 29th of 2018. And we had our first missions meeting about midway through October of 2018. But I would say, as far as the toughest aspect of being, I'm going to go with being a stateside missionary, is many times I will call, and we have been seeing, even since we started deputation, the culture kind of changed towards stateside missionaries. But there's a lot of churches still that look at the stateside and don't really see the need that is present here in our own nation. Many of those churches may be within the Bible Belt and haven't really seen outside of there much. And really, I would say it's just helping people to become aware of the need that's present in our own nation.
And that's a good answer to understand. And I believe, in fact, I spoke with a missionary today who said to me he scheduled 4 meetings today in the midst of COVID-19. So missionaries, if you're telling me I can't get meetings, I know a guy who got 4 today. And so missions can be hard at times, but we keep pushing. Why? Because God's called us to do this. Brother Daniel Lovell, this is my brother-in-law who's asking a question. How will witnessing to the Indians be different from witnessing to others?
Really, as far as I'm aware, and as far as I've been able to talk to people and gain understanding of this, the natives there, they are very open to conversation, very, very polite people. We've been able to go and talk to many of them and found that is true. Very, very polite, very open to speak to you. So really, it shouldn't be too difficult to actually find an open door to speak to someone, just to have a casual conversation with them. But however, getting them to see their need of accepting Christ, that can be another story, because many of them, not all by any means, but there's several that still kind of cling to some of their traditional Native American heritage, and as far as religion is concerned. And when going with them or to them with Christ, they kind of want to, in some aspects, add another level to the list of things that they've already accepted. And really, there's going to be an area where we have to come around and make sure that they're fully understanding that it's through the blood of Christ, and that is the only way.
Brother Wesley, I'm going to try to get to everybody's question. And if we don't, Brother Wesley's going to get into the comments and ask afterward. Missionary to Liberia, Brother Rick Osborne is asking, how do the Indians feel about you planting a Baptist church?
Really, I don't think there's any kickback. I haven't heard of any as of yet.
Okay.
It's just it might be that they don't really necessarily like us to be in their specific town, but we have not heard any resentment to that idea as of yet.
Good. Brother Francis Newton, he's a missionary to India. Now, he's asking, do you know the native language of the Indian there, or do you plan to learn it if you don't know it?
Many of the natives don't really speak that language anymore. They all speak English. And I have heard little clips of the native language. And it seems to be, to me, I don't know for certain, but it seems to be a fairly complex language. I don't see myself necessarily learning it because I'm not trying to assimilate necessarily everything about their culture, as far as trying to make myself like them or like one of them, because I would be afraid of offending them. But however, like I said, they are all speaking English. So we will just go with the English language.
How's your
And
English,
actually,
Wesley?
it's Southern English. So
Southern English. We'll work with you,
yeah.
though. Nara Dietrich, Nara, my friend from the Solomon Islands, missionary there. Have you had any other families show interest in moving out with you to find work out there and get plugged into the church? Anybody who's interested in helping you?
We have not found that specific interest. We have found many groups as we go on deputation that are interested in coming out and for a period, sending a team out for a period to help with any building project we may have, or
Okay.
just to help door knock and all that kind of stuff. But however, there is a missionary family that does live on the Flathead Reservation.
Hmm.
They're elderly and unable to actually plant a church. They've been living there for a few years now. And we are going to be, Lord willing, being able to kind of bounce back off of them a little bit and work out with them some.
Good.
They serve with BIMI, and they've been working with natives since 1979 in Canada and the United States.
Good.
So we were able to meet them on our trip. We went there just in February, and it was
Hmm.
a great blessing getting to meet that couple.
Well, that's good. And if you're interested in moving out to Northwest Montana and helping Wesley and Kayla, they would welcome that, wouldn't you, Brother
Amen.
Wesley? Amen.
Yes.
Good. Brother Joel Dickens comes back with a second question, and that is, would in-home Bible studies be used as an effective tool? That other family to whom you made reference, have they been using Bible studies at all?
They have to an extent.
Good.
They have they have an old bus that they have renovated to use for children's ministry
Hmm.
because the Native Americans there they are more likely to send their children to church up until they're about 12 or 13 years old. And then
Hmm.
they'll pull them out of church and say it's time to become an adult.
Mm.
So therefore, there is a area where we will probably be able to target more of a youth ministry, at least at the beginning of everything.
Right. I have a combo question. It's like two people asked a similar question, and you may have to press into the comments to give me enough time to end, as well as to get you to go there and answer it for the complications of this, if there are any. But I have two questioners, one who's saying, do you have programs in mind helping those with addictions and struggling with suicide? The other question tags on with that and said, do you have any training to deal with the addicted and chronically depressed? And if you can just give a brief answer, and then we can press into it further and see if there are any other questions to answer. You can go answer those in the comments fully.
Amen. Once we do get a church planted there and start having a number kind of increase in the church, we do look to try to start something like an RU program or something along those
Wonderful.
lines. I know there's RU is not the only one. There's others as well that you
Mhm.
can use, and we praise the Lord for those. We look forward to being able to use those, Lord willing. And as far as specific training for the addictions, I don't have any specific training as far as that's concerned. But however, I did have a rough time in my life where I lived a part of that. And I do believe that that is going to be a great help when dealing with people because I've been there. I had about 7 years that I was at that point in my own life.
Wesley, I appreciate your humility and your transparency. It's very brave to say in front of 1,000 people that this is what you faced and these are your challenges as well. And I thank those who questioned about that. And there are great tools available to us to take training and to utilize the training that you get, as well as programs that you can implement at your church. And I applaud you for considering those as well. And like I said, Brother Wesley's going to be in the comment section. Wesley did a great job tonight. Thank you for being here. Want to say to you, I learned it tonight about your faith and your walk with God and the place that He called you. And I thank you for being here this evening. God
Amen.
bless you.
Thank you for having me.
Amen. Absolutely. Well, tonight you watched everything, I hope, and you can go back if you missed part. You can go back and watch the beginning of it to whatever point you missed. But we'll be here Tuesday night at 7 o'clock as well. We'll show a presentation. I'll interview a missionary. We'll take your questions, which to me is like the most fun of all. And we'll get your questions. And we're going to ask you to join us the next time to see what God is doing around the world. And until then, From Kings Mountain, North Carolina, I say to you, good night.